God here. And it's football season. And it's like 100 degrees outside. Sorry about that. Welcome to Season 3 of Gods of Odds, hosted by two of my favorites, Brad Hoiseth and Dave Dabbah.
Welcome to the Gods of Odds. It is week number 16 of your National Football League season. That is Brad Hoiseth over there in beautiful Southern California. I'm Dave Dabbah up in Northern California, and apparently, Brad, I must be going to some sort of holiday dress-up party today because I do look like, and you pointed this out before we started the show, I do look like your favorite head coach in the National Football League, Brandon Staley, today.
Yeah, you got a little Charger gear going there. Somebody must have had an early Christmas there at the Dabbah household or something. Or that's right. Yeah, you celebrate Hanukkah. That's right. I forgot about that.
We celebrate all holidays. There'll also be a stocking, and the other lights will be around as well.
Well, the winter weather has made its way towards the Minneapolis area, though. I keep getting messages from my father and my mother about this terrible blizzard that's going on and all that kind of stuff. But man, oh man, Dave, the Viking game last week, you ever seen anything like that in your life?
I have not, and I did see the Buffalo game with Frank Reich, and so I saw that unfold. But I was so much younger back then, I wasn't really aware of just how big of a comeback that was. Never seen anything like it. I'll say this: me and my wife had a meeting with our accountant in the morning, which went on and on and on, and did not. So I didn't have a chance to watch the game live, and my phone, Brad, was like blowing up. People were coming out of the woodwork. People I haven't heard from in literally years were texting me during that game, and I was just ignoring everything to the best of my ability, so I could watch it in its entirety. And I just, it is, it's one of those things where when you look at this Viking season as a whole, you sort of and I've got we're both Viking fans and definitely trying not to be a homer here, but they're 11-3, and it is still, despite that huge comeback last week, I actually have less hope for this team after last week. How about you?
Well, two things on that game. First of all, the Vikings have still at 11-3 outscored their opponents by 2 points for the year. Okay, most teams that are 11-3. They've outscored their opponents by 100 points, right?
And most people are actually pointing to, well, they'd be much better if they had just, lost to the Cowboys by a touchdown.
Right. But onto that game. First off, Jeff Saturday. I mean, when he took this job, what was it, 3 weeks ago now or something like that?
Yeah.
And he had to have been thinking, okay, well, this sounds like something fun. I'm gonna do this. I could be an NFL head coach. I know the organization. What's the worst thing that can happen? It doesn't work out at the end of the year. I go back to my studio job at ESPN, right?
Right.
Did it ever cross his mind 4 weeks ago that he may now be attached to history for a long, long time as being the coach that blew the largest league? I mean, he's now in the history books. I don't think it ever crossed his mind when he thought about taking this job 4 weeks ago.
No, I don't think it did at all. And how ironic would it be, Brad, if he did such a horrific job as the interim head coach that ESPN turned around and said, "No, thank you."
All right, let's get into these things here. Everybody's got a big Christmas and holiday and Hanukkah celebrations and everything they got going. So we got a game tonight. We got all kinds of games. Just want to say, happy holidays to all my family back in the Midwest and those that are in and around Arizona and things of that nature. First game, Seattle at Kansas City. The Chiefs are a 10-point favorite, and I keep waiting for this team to look great, Dave.
Yeah.
And their defense is just not very good. And, last year, the defense was making a ton of turnovers for the Chiefs, and they were blowing teams out. Well, they're not getting the turnovers this year. And I watch this team every week. I picked up their defense. I've had them a couple times this year in fantasy football thinking, okay, well, maybe those turnovers are still coming again. And they're just not coming. And they're not a very good defensive football team. And so the Chiefs are a 10-point favorite. My fear here is that the weather, they got that big blizzard thing going through, but that should pass through Kansas City by that point. And Seattle is, they're not on it. It's not like playing in colder weather is unusual to them. They do it quite often. So I just really love Pete Carroll as a coach. I think again this season he's gotten his team to overperform. I think 10 points is a lot. The Chiefs they've been just barely skipping by on teams. They're winning games and they're still a really good football team. But that defense scares me, Dave. I'm going to take the 10 points in the Hawks.
You know what? The Texans are not that bad, Brad. Is it really what it sort of comes down to? Yeah, I'm with you on this. I think Kansas City is going to win the game. 10 points is a lot of points for sure. Glad to see I finally rubbed off on you, Mr. Hoiseth, when it comes to Pete Carroll. The Chiefs defense, quite frankly, just not that good. And when they are good, they get pressure with their front four, and they're just not getting any pressure with their front four. This is basically like if Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes is by far the best quarterback in the National Football League. Don't talk to me about Josh Allen. Don't talk to me about Jalen Hurts. None of those guys would be able to survive with that Kansas City Chiefs defense. I'm just saying. So Patrick Mahomes gets my vote as MVP for this year as well in the National Football League. I look at this and I think this is, sort of similar to the early days in Patrick Mahomes' career in Kansas City. Once he started starting where the defense was really weak, it seems to be really weak again. Not a great O-line right now. And he's just a magician and he's a one-man show. And I don't see any let up right now. They want to try to secure home field advantage if they can. Kansas City is going to win this game, but that defense is just so bad. And I think, Brad, I saw this yesterday. Geno Smith had made it to the Pro Bowl. How weak is the NFC quarterbacks when Geno Smith and Kirk Cousins are in the Pro Bowl?
Another reason not to watch the Pro Bowl.
It's not even a Pro Bowl anymore. They're doing
like a flag football game, isn't it?
Yeah, Eli versus Peyton. Don't we see enough of Eli versus Peyton already? Now we got to see him coach a Pro Bowl.
I'd rather see Eli and Peyton play in the game.
I would rather. I'm with you. I'm absolutely with you.
All right, what do you got for me?
All right, Brad. Moving on. So we are recording today. It is 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I wanted to just mention that because we are going to cover the Jags-Jets games. Normally, we don't cover the Thursday night games, but this one was just too good not to talk about, just at least for a brief minute or two. The New York Football Jets are a bit of a mess at the quarterback position. Mike White certainly played better than Zach Wilson did in the past. Zach Wilson is going to get his second start in a row. I don't know what the deal is. This could be one of those things when Zach Wilson matures 3 to 5 years from now and gets his fourth chance in the National Football League. He could go all Rich Gannon on us and turn into something special for a short period of time. He certainly has the arm strength for something like that to happen, but it's like bad decision after bad decision, poor mechanics, all sorts of things. So Jets favored by 1, great defense on the Jets side. This game's important to everybody here. Let's just be really clear about it. I looked at this and I said, you know what? I'm gonna take Trevor Lawrence. Something tells me that Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars are going to march into MetLife Stadium tonight and find a way to take down the Jets.
Yeah, I don't think so, Dave. First of all, let's clarify one thing. You and I think we both do, but I really like Doug Peterson as a coach.
Yeah.
And the job that he's done with the Jags is great. I mean, and I think we all knew that is exactly what he would do with the Jets or with the Jags. But again, like you said, this is a big game. Jets are at home. It's basically who do you think is going to win the game, basically. And so I think the Jets are desperate for a win right now. They've been on a little bit of a slide. Haven't played great football lately. I'm not a firm believer the Jaguars are a great football team. Going on the road, it's going to be cold and windy and the whole thing. I just like the Jets at home on a Thursday night. I think it's going to be a really low-scoring game, by the way. The over-under on this thing is only 37.5. So it's going to come down to, one possession, a field goal, something like that. But I'm going to take the Jets at home.
Zach Wilson's such a knucklehead that he hasn't figured out, throw the ball to your star rookie wide receiver. Just throw it up to him. It's like, don't throw it 20 yards past him, but, do what Cousins does with Justin Jefferson. Garrett Wilson's that good of a young wide receiver. And Mike Wilson knew it. And that's why when he was in, he targeted Wilson so much. So I just like, I don't know. I don't understand. The Jets coaching staff must be beside themselves with Zach Wilson on this. So I wholeheartedly disagree with you, Hoiseth.
All right, we're going to go to New England next. The Bengals are at the Patriots. And I'm playing the over-under in this thing, which is 41.5. And I'm looking at that weather report, Dave, and it's going to be awful in the Northeast come this weekend. And so I think it's just going to be a slugfest, a low-scoring affair. The Patriots have got a good defense to begin with. The Bengals, They have the ability to get stops on defense. I don't think much of that New England offense. I think stick with that weather, Dave. I'm going under 41.5. Seems like a lot of points. I mean, I could see this thing being if the weather's as bad as what they say it's going to be, I could see it being like a 13-10 game or something.
Yeah, I'm glad you put on your meteorologist hat.
Yeah,
for a second. So I was going to go with the over, but I'm going to flip-flop to the under. I'll agree with you. I haven't had as much time as you today to check out the good old Doppler in the Doppler predictions into New England. But if the weather is as bad as you say it is, then you're absolutely right. And I just like, I think that I'll just say this: the Bengals will not play well in the first half and play great in the second half, as they have all season, which is a really good sign of a young coaching staff that is understanding its parts that it has on its team. Mixon's still not right yet, and the Patriots just salt in the wounds after that most disgraceful way I've ever seen a football team lose a game.
The funny thing about the Patriots, I was looking at the the playoff possibilities and things of that nature. I was really checking out the numbers because I was really intrigued with the fact the Vikings have only outscored their opponents by 2 points. So I was doing a lot of homework on that. And I got to tell you, I think if you're in the AFC playoffs, not that this team has any chance of going anywhere, but I don't think you want to play the Patriots. And just because, they're like 500, but they've outscored their opponents by like 25 points. They play really good defense. And on a one-game scenario, it's Bill Belichick, right? And so, but in this particular case, I just see this thing being a really low-scoring affair, and the Bengals and the Patriots. By the way, Joe Burrow's a pretty good quarterback too. If he beats Patrick Mahomes again for a third time in a row in the playoffs, you may want to rethink that whole deal about the best quarterback in the league.
Yeah, you know what? I always forget about Burrow, but you're right. I mean, like I'd have him listed right now as the second best quarterback in the NFL. And in those head-to-head games with Mahomes, he definitely seems to have his card. So
the kid is he's a big time player at a big times, right? I mean, sometimes you forget about him, and then all of a sudden you see his comebacks and you see how he gets that team to score at the end of games and win games, and you just go, man. And then you forget he's really only in his third year in the league, and he's a really talented kid. I mean,
yeah.
If they can keep him healthy, that's going to be a good franchise for a long time.
He's like a super talented version of Broadway Joe. I mean, he's got the charisma and the character, and he doesn't say anything dumb or wrong as well. He's just so, I've said this a couple times. A lot of people say this, but he's just so smooth as ice.
I think the term that comes to mind for him is moxie. He's got a lot of moxie, Dave. How's that?
Yeah, definitely a lot of moxie for sure going on there. All right, moving on. Christmas Day football, Christmas Eve. I don't know if this is Christmas Eve day.
Most Eagles of these games are on Saturday this week.
Yeah, it's really thrown me a little bit. We've got the Eagles at Cowboys. Big game. All sorts of people in the media, continuing to come down way too hard on Dak Prescott for what happened against the Jaguars last week. Last time I checked, he threw that pass onto the fingertips of his wide receiver. That wide receiver should have caught the ball, or at least knocked it down. That interception and that pick six is not on Dak Prescott. I would put it on the Dallas Cowboy coaching staff for taking their foot off the pedal on the offensive side of the ball last week against the Jags. And you're dealing with, a really good head coach that's capable of making adjustments at halftime. And you're also dealing with, Trevor Lawrence, who also seems to play better in the second half of football games, like Joe Burrow does. So you're starting to see a pattern with some of these young quarterbacks that have good coaches with them. It's amazing how much better Trevor Lawrence is this year than he was last year with his partying without the partying Urban Myers as the head coach of that team. So I look at this Cowboy game and I'm super excited about it. I doubt that they'll play Jalen Hurts. I know they're playing a little coy and everything here, that his shoulder might be. They're not going to play Hurts in this game. They're going to play Gardner Minshew. And he's got great stats, from his days as a starter in the National Football. It's something like 44 touchdowns, 9 picks. He's probably one of the better backup quarterbacks in the National Football League. And that offense, generally not as reliant on the quarterback to throw the ball. So this might be a really good fit for the Eagles. Cowboys had to get this win. And they will. They'll run the ball well. Mike McCarthy will coach 3 out of 4 quarters well. That should be enough to take down the Eagles in this one.
Well, it's already been decided. In fact, it just came across the wire, I don't know, a couple hours ago that Jalen Hurts is not going to play. So,
okay.
I got to tell you, though, Dave, I still think the Eagles are going to win the game. And that defense is really good. Well, to me, it's a pace game.
Yeah.
If the Cowboys get out in front early, they can run the ball. if they get behind, they don't have much of a passing attack. People talk about CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb people say, well, a guy takes a quarter off. CeeDee Lamb takes months off, and then he shows up and he's great.
Yeah.
But past him, they don't really have much in the passing game. That team relies on pounding the football. They finally figured out that Ezekiel is the second best running back in town. And that's where they have their success. Their defense takes a lot of chances.
Yeah.
And so, I just have a sense the Eagles, it still means a lot to them. They want to close this thing down. Now they're close to wrapping up the number 1 seed in the NFC, but they're not there yet. And at least I don't think they are they?
No, they're not.
They still got to win one more game at least.
Yeah.
But I think they will, and I think it's an upset that's coming in Dallas. I think Philadelphia's going to win the game by a touchdown. I'm going to take the Eagles, and I'm going to give you the 4.5.
Yeah, as a fan of football,
actually, I'm going to take the 4.5, right? Because the Cowboys are favored by 4.5.
Yeah, the Cowboys are favored by 4.5. Like as a fan of football, I'm so looking forward to this game. I can't wait. And for personal reasons, I hope they pan to Jerry Jones's box a lot during this game, because I know somebody that's going to be sitting in his box. Anyways, Mr. Hoiseth, I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, well, Gardner Minshew, junior college football quarterback, by the way, Dave. So let's move on to my next one, though. It's Washington at San Francisco. The Niners are 7-point favorites playing at home. It's a funny line. I think it's a lot, but I'm going to take the 49ers here. Washington just seems to be kind of starting to crumble a little bit. Taylor Heineke, I don't know. I love watching him play, but I think I'd be really frustrated if I was a fan of Washington having to watch him play. He takes a lot of risks, a lot of chances. Every once in a while he makes a big play, but that team doesn't seem to be able to get in the end zone when they want to. And every time I watch him, I don't know, I haven't looked at the stats, but it seems like that team takes a ton of penalties at the most inopportune of times. And so I'm going to take the Niners. I just think that defense is really good. I think they'll force Heineke into throwing a couple picks, and McCaffrey should have a field day. So I'm going to take the Niners and give the 7.
All right. That makes way too much sense. What I'm more interested in than this particular game, the Commanders fans, like Taylor Heineke is like the least of their concerns if you're a Commanders fan. Like the owner of that team should be your primary concern. I like Taylor Heineke. I like Ron Rivera. The defense has played, better. I was surprised that they allowed themselves to lose to the Giants. You're right. The cookie's starting to crumble, if you will, just a little bit here. Brock Purdy in San Francisco, just trust me. Just trust me on this. Like he's not going to turn into a Hall of Fame quarterback. He might be a Gardner Minshew style quarterback. Nothing wrong with that, by the way. But so I think the 49ers are going to win this, and I agree with you on that. But like, do you really think like a Brock Purdy can go into Philadelphia for an NFC Championship game and beat the Eagles?
I do. And I tell you why, Dave, because they got a great defense, and you got Christian McCaffrey and you got George Kittle, and I still think the Niners. I still think the Niners are a team that is one more big injury away from being history. I mean, they're on thin ice right now as it comes to injuries. They just can't, losing Deebo Samuel I thought was huge. Yeah. I just don't know that they can match point for point with Philadelphia, but when that defense is right, they're very, very difficult to score on. And, if you got that, you got a chance. Now, would he win there? Probably not, but, you got a chance with that defense.
Yeah, I think you have more than a fighting chance with that defense, and I think that's what's wrong with, some of the other teams in the NFC playoff picture is teams that don't have good defenses have no chance against the Eagles in Philadelphia. So it could be a bit of a dogfight. I think you're right, but that the Eagles defense is pretty good too. So I mean, not as good as the 49ers.
Yeah. All right. Well, where are we going here now? Oh, it's your game next.
All right. Moving on to the the Texans at Titans. My apologies to everybody for even picking this game. I was running out of options. But it did make sense. I mean, like the idea is the top 10 games we're spending some money on. And if I had to spend some money on a game this week, this would be an obvious one for me. -4 if you take the Titans at home against the Texans. This Titans team has been a complete disaster since they fired their general manager in the middle of the season and gave no reason why. It's just unbelievable stuff in Tennessee. So Vrabel's got to get this ship turned around. The Titans, like if they could ever sort of get back on track, could be dangerous for a week or two in the playoffs. But right now they seem like a team heading in the other direction. The Texans have played hard at home the last couple weeks. It's a different thing to go on the road in the cold in Tennessee. So I'm taking the Titans in this one. One quick side note. In case you're unaware, Mr. Hoiseth, the Tennessee Titans have a brand new stadium proposal. And I'm so mad. I am so disappointed. They're going dome. I am just like, they're going with an indoor sort of arena that sort of looks something sort of similar to what they have in Indianapolis. Anyways, that's the current plan. I was like, build it outside.
Yeah, I agree. It's not like Tennessee has like this horrific weather, even though they might have it this weekend, but I don't get that at all. Look, this is a simple game. Titans have got a lot to play for. Houston's got nothing to play for. If it's a weather game, that means more Derrick Henry.
That's right.
I think it's a lot of problems for the Texans. I don't got a lot more to say about this one. -4. To me, that's one of the easier games of the week.
Last thing on this game is like, I don't know if you saw it, but did you see Derrick Henry actually run over his own player? This is all. So like, I don't understand like why Tennessee just doesn't run Derrick Henry 50 times a game right now. Like they got to get back on track, and that's the way to do it. Anyways.
Yeah, well, the quarterback, Tannehill's been dinged up, and they don't really have a lot past Derrick Henry. There's just not a lot offensively there. They're kind of, but they do have a lot to play for this weekend, and I think Henry gets the rock a lot this weekend. Yeah. My next game, Packers at Dolphins. Big game for Miami. They've been kind of leaking oil, let's just say. They're at home. They're 4-point favorites against the Packers team that I still don't think is very good, Dave. Offensively, they've found a weapon with Christian Watson, but outside of that, they've been playing a soft schedule and they've gotten a couple of wins, but the Packers are still not a good football team. Going into Miami, who I think has to win, they got a lot of weapons. There's weapons all over the field. I think the Dolphins win this one comfortably, and I'll give that 4 points.
Okay. Dolphins, really could have won that game last week in Buffalo. I've been on the fence since I saw you pick this game. And I'm assuming when we get our recalculations, I heard you had to fire the guy that's been calculating our wins and losses over the season. I suspect I'm behind by a couple games, and this is an area that potentially I can make up some ground on Mr. Hoiseth. So I've got the Packers actually coming in and finding a way to win this game. Aaron Rodgers just loves this whole this whole idea that he can somehow run the table and add another asterisk to his legendary mark in the National Football League, and somehow get this Packer team into the playoffs. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I think like they really believe they can go in and beat this Dolphins team. And Tua, quite frankly, like that Buffalo Bills defense isn't as good as we think it is without Von Miller. They really aren't. And so I think this Packer team, I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm good, but I'm going to stick with the Packers in this game. On a side note, I needed Aaron Rodgers to throw 4 touchdown passes on Monday night for my fantasy football team, because Lamar Jackson, who had been my starting quarterback all season, went down. I picked up Brock Purdy the week before, and then I dropped Purdy and went with Aaron Rodgers. And Purdy wouldn't have gotten me enough points either. And I was like, I was in the playoffs, and now I'm no longer in the playoffs. I guess there's a third place game. I'm in 2 leagues, Brad. I did win my other playoff game, so I'm in the championship there. But in the one that matters, I'm playing for third.
Uh-oh, that hurts. Yeah, I'm in the semis this week. My quarterback I will talk about in my last game. How's that?
Okay.
That's a little teaser for you.
Okay. So moving on. Giants at Vikings. This is a Saturday game. Vikes favored by 3 in this, or 3.5 in this game. Like I really wanted to come onto this show and try to sort of say to you, Brad, that comeback victory that the Vikings had was going to somehow motivate this team to change in some sort of positive way. But that defense is just so bad. And it's bad for one half and then like decent the other time. So like adjustments are made, but they can just be blown away early in football. We saw this with Dallas. We saw it with Philadelphia, which are both good teams. And so we should not be this concerned about a football team that's had so many comebacks this season with an 11-3 record. We should not be bashing them as much as we are. But that defense is just that bad. And I don't see any sign of help there. That being said, you're going up against Daniel Jones at home. Like, do you believe Daniel Jones should be a starting quarterback in the National Football League? I mean, it's like, it's ridiculous. Like, if he's a backup, I get it. Yeah, it makes sense. But a starting he's in his 4th year. Like, what the hell are the New York Giants doing? It's like, within 2 years, like, look at Zach Wilson. They know now what they have. The Giants have been in denial about what they have for the last 2.5 years. Like that, they're not going anywhere with Elmer Fudd. Daniel Jones at all. They're just not going anywhere with him. Look, the Viking defense will have to stop Saquon Barkley. That will force them to play more conservative, traditional defense in this game if they're going to win it. And that's the kind of defense they should be playing right now anyways, because this 3-4 is not working. This 3-4 zone defense scheme that they're running does not work. So my hope is when they play a team that's got a really strong running game, their defense focuses in and plays better. Going with the Vikes, happy to give up the points.
You know, Dave, I should have listened to my intuition last week. I came on the show and I said the Vikings never beat anybody by 4 points. And sure enough, I went ahead and I took the Vikings, and they won by 3, right?
I felt bad.
Same thing here. It's a 3.5 point spread. The Vikings don't beat anybody by 4 points. That's not what they do. And the Giants need this game more than the Vikings do. I really believe that. Daniel Jones got the number 12 QB rating in the league, according to ESPN. I know it doesn't sound flashy and he doesn't throw the ball a ton, but he's a very good runner, Daniel Jones. Not that I see that playing a big part in this game or anything. Look, you said it. This defense is horrific. And, it's one thing to get all excited about a 33-point comeback. If it was a 33-point comeback against a good football team, it would be one thing, right? But I came up with a new term this year for the Viking defense. They have Chernobyl quarters, okay, where they just completely melt down. You cannot do that and expect to be around in the playoffs very long because we've seen it. We saw it happen in Philadelphia. We saw it happen against the Cowboys. Remember the Philadelphia playoff game a few years back in the NFC title game? What a disaster that was. This team has like Chernobyl-type meltdowns. I've never seen anything like it. And I cannot in good faith think that the Vikings are long for the playoffs. I really can't. I mean, they're going to get a good seed. They'll probably meet a, NFC South team in the first round or something and get a win. But I have zero confidence that this team is. I think the Lions are a better football team right now than the Vikings. They proved it 2 weeks ago. But I'm going to go the other way. I'm taking the Giants. I think the Vikings could win it, but when you've only outscored your opponents by 2 points the entire season, and you're 11-3, there's on the positive side for the Vikings. They're winning a lot of close games. That is an incredible, great quality to have when you're winning close football games. It's gotten them to 11-3, right? Teams that have outscored their opponents or by like 2 points or are very even. You look at all of them in the league; they're all either 6-8 or 7-7.
Yeah,
and so I don't know how they got to 11-3. I still think it's a complete mystery, and I think they're a complete fraud at 11-3. But they do have something in them that allows them to win close games. And I don't like Kirk Cousins at all, but he has had a good season this year. He's had a better season than he had the previous years. I know everybody has a good run in them. He's been in the league 10 years. You play long enough, and you're going to have a streak where you look good, right? But I can't help but think that the real Kirk Cousins is going to show up at some point. I think it starts this weekend. I think the Giants shock the Vikings. How's that?
Okay. All right. Disagree on that. The real Kirk Cousins is, we've seen there's two different Kirk Cousins. There's like you have to, you have to be a really confident quarterback to bring your team back from 33 to nothing. That doesn't happen. Like Daniel.
Wait a minute. Matt Ryan was in the. It reminds me of an old saying. I'll never forget this. You might remember this. You're old enough to remember this. This was the Final Four, and the Indiana Hoosiers and Bob Knight are playing LSU. I don't know if you remember this. This is 30 years ago, whatever. And Indiana was down by like 7 points with about a minute and a half left. And they came back and won. And in the post-game presser, one of the great quotes of all time by Bob Knight, he said, I saw we were down by 7 points or whatever, and I thought we were in big trouble. And then I looked at the other bench and I saw Dale Brown, and I knew we still had a chance. It was one of the greatest slams on an opposing coach I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way about this comeback the Vikings had. It was Matt Ryan. They looked on the other side and they saw Matt Ryan and they said, we've still got a chance.
How many times have we seen Cousins over the years, once he goes into the tank, not pull himself out of the tank? And what we've seen out of Cousins this year, and I do want to give him a little bit of respect here, is that he has pulled the team. He has gone into the tank on numerous occasions, had bad play after bad play, bad half after bad half, and gotten better and made adjustments as the game has gone on. I'd much rather see Cousins start out slow. I actually feel more confident when Cousins, like when they don't score a touchdown on the first drive. I have way more confidence in this Viking team than when they go out and score a touchdown on the first drive. It's wacky, but I bet you statistically I could back it up. the one question I have for you, Brad, is Ed Donatello, is he gone at the end of the season? They're going to make the playoffs. Assume they win maybe 2 more games in the next week.
I think it really all depends. I think it really all depends on where they go in the playoffs. I mean, their first year staff, and you can always point to the roster and say, look, it's just not there. We don't have the guys. When you're in your first year, when you get to your second or third year, that excuse kind of runs out. And so, I think the Vikings and their organization clearly understand that they got to go out and get some defensive talent in the draft this year. They've got to get some guys and some good free agents, because that defense, they're last in the league, aren't they? I mean, they're terrible.
They're there. Donatello. I don't. The problem isn't necessarily just the players. The problem is the scheme. And I don't think you can run the style defense that he wants to run game in and game out. I think there's some games where that style defense really works, but you have to be able to do more. You have to be able to play and more than one style defense in this National Football League. And they have to, they rarely ever blitz. They rarely ever bring anybody up. They sit back in these zone defense coverages, and they give up yards. And he's publicly stated he's okay with. I think a change needs to be made. If they win a couple games in the playoffs, then I'll say okay, let's run for another season. But even if we did run for another season, I would want to see Donatello say, okay, I'm switching back to a more traditional style defense.
Yeah, I mean, they're funny because they get stopped sometimes when they need to.
Yeah.
I mean, the second half, look, they were down 33 points, and I know that's the Colts, and the Colts have a tendency to be horrific at times, but they didn't move the ball at all in the second half, and the Vikings just shut them down. And so the week before, remember, they got the big stops late in the game in that one too. So yeah. I mean, at times they do make stops, but they are the most bendable team I've ever seen between the 20s. I mean, They just allow teams to go right down the field, and it's not a good defense. I don't think we need to say much more about that, but but they need some guys at the end of the year. They got to go out and get some talent on the defensive side of the ball. They're the team that needs to go get Von Miller, something like that, and really make yourself a better football team.
They need to get a young Von Miller, not somebody who's going to play.
Well, yeah, I was being just talking about that type of player. But all right, on to my last game. My starting quarterback in my fantasy football semifinals, Dave, is a guy by the name of Jared Goff from your neck of the woods, Marine Catholic.
All right.
And they're playing at Sam Darnold, by the way, of San Clemente High School, which is where my wife is a teacher. And so the Lions are at the Panthers. The Lions are a 2.5-point favorite, Dave. And look, if I was to make a power rankings right now in the NFC, the Lions would be my number 4 team in the NFC, ahead of the Vikings, by the way.
If you asked me who are the best teams right now in the NFC, who do you have number 1, 2, 3, and 4?
Well, it's the Eagles, it's the Niners, probably the Cowboys 3, and then I would put the Lions 4 and the Vikings 5.
I no disagreement here.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Lions are a good football team. They're red hot. They've got a shot at making the playoffs now. They're still kind of in that funky zone because they're behind somebody else in the wild card chase as well. No, yeah. Washington's in right now. They're still behind I forget who it is, but somebody else that's in the playoff hunt as well. So they still have to leapfrog a team. This is a huge game for them. It's a huge game for the Panthers as well, though. So The question is it Marin Catholic or is it San Clemente? I mean, who's going to win this thing? And I'm going to go with the Lions. I just think the Lions are red hot. I think they're a really good football team right now. I don't think much of Carolina as a football team. It's only 2.5 points. Yeah, the weather's going to play a factor. It's going to be cold. I heard they were going to have a -1 wind chill.
Yeah.
In some part of Mississippi on Saturday. I mean, this whole cold spell thing is dropping way down to the south. But I don't think that bothers the Lions. I think it's going to be, mid-teens, maybe 20 degrees at game time for the Lions that day. I don't think that bothers them because they have a great offensive line that can run the ball. And the Carolina Panthers don't have Christian McCaffrey anymore. So I'm sorry. Sam Darnold doesn't have the tools around him that Jared Goff does. So I'm going to take Goff and the Lions. Give the 2.5.
Yeah, I like Goff a lot in this game. The Lions are really good at playing this different styles of games. They can play the close game. They can play the blowout game. High scoring game. They'll play at the above the level of their opponents at this point. By far, the most maybe the 49ers. But both the 49ers and the Lions right now are my two favorite teams in the NFC. Love watching both of those teams play. Because, with Brock Purdy, you just, it's interesting to see this young kid, this young quarterback play. With Goff, it's interesting to see how they're using these three different running backs, these wide receivers. They're bringing the kid in from Alabama now, who was who tore his ACL during the championship game last year. Is just exciting to watch. The defense seems to be improving, pretty dramatically. Like Brad, like when you're when your kid's in school and he or she starts a class and struggles sort of out of the gate. And then you get them a tutor and you try to help them out. And then by the end of the semester, they've gone from maybe not passing the class to a B+. That's exactly where this Detroit Lions team has gone. That's what we look for in the National Football League, Mike Vrabel. We look for teams that are improving and not disapproving.
Well, first of all, Dave, I went to Cal State Fullerton, so if I got a B+, that's an A, basically.
Yeah,
that's an A for me, a B+, right?
Yeah, that is that's a grade that's not accepted in the Ivy League.
Harvard of the West is what we call it, Dave. Harvard of the West.
Harvard of the West. My sister also graduated from Cal State Fullerton, and at the time it was a top 10 business school.
Not everybody can graduate from Cal State Fullerton, Dave. Not everybody.
Let's go Titans. Home of the one of the best names
Kevin
for
Costner.
campus.
Kevin Costner.
Yeah, he loved it so much he walked away. Cal State Concrete. If you're not familiar with the nickname for Cal State Fullerton, it is Cal State Concrete. A good college basketball team last year, Brad. At least made it to the big dance, which was nice to see. All right. All right. Are we on to our last game?
We are.
Cedric Ceballos, if we're throwing out names.
Yep, that's right. Cedric Ceballos went there. He was an all-timer.
Bruce Bowen, and I played him one-on-one and sprained my ankle. Oh. taking on Bruce Bowen once, which was very entertaining. All right, so last game. Hey, last year, Brad, I bought this Charger hoodie. I wore it on the show once, and I was like, I've been waiting like this entire year to roll out my Charger hoodie. And you can see it's sort of wrinkled. That's because I had it stored away because I didn't want to bring it out until I had some level of confidence that we would actually see Justin Herbert. And I guess I look like the head coach in the playoffs this year. I finally have I have like a 93% chance of making the playoffs. I know, Brad. This is the Chargers. You'll take the 7% and go in the other direction. But I looked at this. I said Chargers at Colts. Chargers favored by 4. We know the Colts are not going to lay over or not going to, fall apart in the first half. They'll reserve that for the second half of the game. They will have had a partial week to figure out how to replace Jonathan Taylor with their other running back. They're making a quarterback change, if you haven't heard. Philadelphia's very own. I look at this and I think like not even Brandon Staley can screw this up. Herbert seems to be getting a little more healthy, and this should be an easy cakewalk game for the Chargers.
Dave, this game is. I was so eager for you to post the sheets this week because to me, this was the easiest game of the week to pick. The Colts are done. They're history. I mean, I'm sorry, but when you lose a 33-point lead and you're out of the playoffs, your season's done. And it's bailout time now. And I think they're going to mail things in from this point forward. The Chargers have got a lot to play for. Chargers kind of hitting their stride. They're a team that not a lot of people are talking about right now. They've won 3 of 4. They've gotten healthy on offense. They got Williams and Keenan Allen back. I really hate their coach. You know that. But I love the Chargers. And so I think it's a blowout city. I think it's the easiest game of the week to pick. You wear the appropriate attire today because the Colts are officially mailing things in after that loss. I can't imagine without anything to play for that I can't imagine what the mood was in that within that locker room all week long. It had to be like, okay, well, now it's over. Where's the nearest golf course? Come the off season, right? Because I think they're finished.
I wonder how many players on the bus ride to the airport were on their mobile phones looking at the Airbnb app, planning their next big vacation. I think there's probably a lot of that going on. All right, there you go. It's the top 10 games worth spending some money on for week number 16 of your National Football League season. Brad, I did want to not leave the show on a sad note, but I did want to say at least one thing about what happened yesterday, unfortunately, with Franco Harris, as Franco Harris passed away. Brad's older than me. He had a summer of 69. So he might actually remember the Immaculate Reception when it happened. I remember it, I was through video because I was 1 at the time it happened. My first memory of a football game is a Viking Cowboy game in like 1976, 77. But having followed the Steelers and the Cowboys and the Vikings, Franco Harris was always one of my all-time favorite players in the National Football League. And he literally did, they were planning to retire his number, and they will retire his number this weekend in Pittsburgh in honor of the Raiders, Steelers 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Reception. And he literally was doing radio shows and everything seemed fine. So just wanted to say that he will certainly be missed, and I'll pass it over to you if you have any thoughts on it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was, I think, about 8 years old when that happened. So I was the beginning stages of hating the Steelers, because, my first, one of my first recollections was when the Vikings played the Dolphins in the Super Bowl. And the Dolphins were just running all over the Vikings, which, by the way, the Purple People Eaters were one of the softest great named defenses of all time. They never stopped anybody that could run the ball, including Franco Harris.
150, 170 yards.
Right. One of my first memories of watching football, and I believe it was the Superfan, my mother. The Vikings are losing to the Dolphins in the Super Bowl, and I just remember Zonka's just running all over the Vikings, and I remember the Superfan saying, "Break his damn legs," or something to that effect, right? And so my mom probably wouldn't say that, but that's the way I remember it anyway. That's the way the story's going down these days. But no, Franco Harris was, those Steelers teams were so great to watch with Bradshaw and Rocky Blyer and L.C. Greenwood and all the guys they had on, Mean Joe Green, all those players. I mean, they were so fun to watch, and certainly that was one of the great plays in the history of the game. It'll never be forgotten, and yeah, it's a sad day when Franco Harris passes away.
Yeah. One of those guys that, it seemed to every year at Canton, Ohio, when they're, enshrining new members, he was literally, I don't think he ever missed a year. He was that guy.
I want to say one thing too. I'm going to build up Dave. It is the holidays. It's a giving time of year. So I got to give Dave some props. He's been hitting on this the last couple shows. Zay Jones has been going nuts. Dave keeps saying Jay Jones, and I'm
Zay Jones.
He's been that hot.
The Raiders would be in a completely different position right now. We would be talking about the Raiders in the playoffs right now with Zay Jones.
Yeah,
Derek Carr misses Zay Jones,
but tonight Zay Jones gets shut down.
It's just not going to happen. I cannot wait. We are literally wrapping up this recording at 3:51 PST. We are an hour and 15 minutes away or so from Zay Jones and the Jaguars taking down the Jets in that game. All right, Mr. Hoiseth, as always, my favorite hour of the week. I want to thank everybody for joining us on the Disturbance today. That is Brad Hoiseth over there in beautiful Southern California. I'm Dave Dabbah up in Northern California. It's been rocking up here, Brad. We've had some earthquakes. Wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing week.
Happy holidays, folks.